Welcome everyone to Tea Time. Woo! So as you can see, we already have our tea. So get your tea and sip with us. Okay.
Let's get cozy as me and Arnell drop some not spicy secrets, but some interesting things have happened to us in Korea, as well as I think and other things in the future, probably stories.
It's definitely lukewarm tea right now. It's definitely some cold tea.
It's cold tea, but it's important tea for those of you who want to go to Korea and possibly work and also have a visa. Especially if you want to be like an English teacher in Korea, I think it's important to know some of the stuff that we are going to cover today. If you can't tell from the title, we are talking about firings and
midnight runs.
And as you guys probably saw from our last post, we both briefly touched on the subjects about when I got fired and when Arnell did a midnight run. So we're going to go ahead and dive into that as to how it happened and what you should do if you were in our position. Because unfortunately, these are not one-time stories. These are stories that we hear and we have seen a lot during our time in Korea.
This is definitely not a rare occurrence.
No, it's not.
This happens all the time to foreigners in Korea.
I think partially why that is just because it's hard to find information available to foreigners, because you're not entirely sure exactly what are your rights and what can you do while you are living in Korea. And unfortunately, for some of the visa series that are in Korea, you don't always have a leg to stand on, but there are protections for you, the worker, in the workplace. So maybe let's hop into my story and then I will explain to you, how do you know you are fired illegally or legally? So after Arnell and I separated and I finished out my contract, I wanted to finally move to Busan because, you know, I've told you guys before, that was always my goal. And at that point in time, my boyfriend and I were together for quite a long time. So we decided to move in together. And so this new boss of mine, he seemed like a really nice person. Like, him and I interviewed and we had a good conversation about like education and making sure kids have fun and learn at the same time. And he seemed like a pretty nice guy. He was even nice to the fact that when I was trying to move there, I caught the 24-hour flu and I thought, I was like, I can go, but I might be horribly sick. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. Which should have been a red flag.
Yeah, because we all know that the bosses in Hagwons do not let you take breaks. They don't let you be sick. That is not a thing. The work culture in Korea is definitely very different from what we're used to.
Yes. Depending on where you work, because I can say at least in my last workplace, if I was sick and I could not come to work, they were not going to force me. But this guy, he was a red flag. He was a red flag as a boss. And which, for those of you who don't know what red flag is, that's kind of the terminology to say they're a person you want to avoid.
Very true. You can think of it like the stoplights. Red means stop. You need to halt. Don't go any closer.
Yes. Yellow, slow down. Green, go. But unfortunately, this red flag boss of mine didn't show his true colors until there was a slight disagreement between my coworker and I. And that's because of something he was telling the Korean teachers to do to us foreign teachers, which was basically spy on us and tell him everything that we were doing, which was a red flag, because you are a person, okay? You do not need to be spied on by your coworkers. And if your boss is allowing people to spy on each other, run away. Like, what happened to people's like personal privacy? Like, I just don't understand that. I understand you want to make sure kids are protected and you have teachers that are doing their work, but like, spying on your teachers and to check up on how they were doing, Hagwons is all I can say. So it was, I got past like the 3-month mark, which this is kind of a bit of information which we'll get into, but basically after you finish 3 months of working at a school, you cannot be fired unless there are reasons. And by law, it should be 3 write-ups. And so you have to have 3 write-ups to get fired, technically. So if your boss...
But for those first 3 months, it's called the probationary period.
Yes. And so if you are getting told you are fired, there's nothing you can do. You can possibly try to negotiate to get a letter of release. Otherwise, you have to go back to your country and possibly start the process again if you want to come back.
So for those who don't know what a letter of release is, what is the letter of release?
Basically, it is and this is the part where I'm just like, where we say this is modern day slavery.
Oh, yeah.
So a letter of release is basically if you want to leave your current contract. So your visa, when you apply, is tied to the school or the workplace you are working.
Mind you, this is only for foreign teachers on a visa.
Yes. Specifically, E2
the Korean staff does not have to deal with this.
No, only foreigners. I'm not sure about other visa types, but I know for E2 visa holders, that is a requirement. Basically, the letter of release, when you go to immigration in Korea to update your visa, it's basically a formal letter to say that your current contract holder is releasing you from your duties and that you are being let go on good terms. So basically no bad blood, which, to be honest, I'm going to tell you honestly, a letter of release is like a rare golden Easter egg.
It's very hard to get, and the employers are very stingy, meaning they do not want to give it to a foreign staff member that's leaving.
Yes.
And you have to have the letter of release in order to get another job in Korea on your E2 visa.
But that's if you quit. Now, if you are fired, it can possibly be negotiated, and which I can get into this later because I had a friend who worked at the same place as me at this location who had to do a different situation. So I got fired because of my accent, apparently. I
didn't even know this, by the way. This is new information for me. I had no idea she got fired because of this.
Which, if you don't know, you can't fire someone because of their accent. And I was a bit shocked. I was like, oh. To be honest, at that point, I have seen enough red flags at this place where I just didn't want to work there anymore. And I was miserable waking up and going to work and dealing with the dramatics of this place because not only were the Korean teachers causing problems, but the foreign teachers were causing problems too, and causing discord among each other. So I was like, I want to leave, and I just don't know how to leave because my friend who quit before I did was having troubles leaving because the boss was basically fighting with her about leaving, which I think kind of turned on to me because I was her friend. So I think he put some of the anger on me and also was having trouble with picky parents because unfortunately I had taught the class with the really picky parents. So they told me they were letting me go because of my accent.
Wow.
My very, I think, neutral tone American accent. I was like, I to be honest, I was kind of like, at first I wanted to argue and be like, you do know I'm an English teacher in the States. I think I speak English quite well and I teach it quite well. But I was like, oh my God, bro, stop, shut up. Because guess what? You can negotiate with them on this because they cannot fire me for something like this. I know they cannot fire me for like this. So I asked them, I said, okay, yeah, I understand. In that case, are you going to give me a letter of release? And they said, yes, we will provide you a letter of release. I said, great. Okay. I understand. I'm so sorry. I'm really upset. But I understand you have to do what you have to do.
Gotta get them crocodile tears out.
Internally, I'm like, yes. And so I walked away going, oh my gosh, it's finally ending. And I should have known something was up. So I think the reason why they did not fire me within the first 3 months, because I knew kind of within a month they didn't like me and they were were wanting to do something about it, but they could not find reasons to just let me go. This was probably one of the good things about COVID. So when you had COVID and you were coming to Korea, you had to quarantine after you got there, and you had to keep showing you were negative. So the girl who took over for me was already on her way. I said, oh, interesting. So you were basically looking for a replacement for me for a while, or this was a replacement for my friend. I don't know what it was exactly. I'm not the person behind the scene. All I know is from what I'm seeing. Yeah. And so she was on her way, and I was not upset at all. Like, not upset. Everyone was kind of like, oh, I'm so sorry. I heard. I said, oh, yeah, it's so sad. Internally, I'm like, yes. Without having to jump through hoops and all this stuff. And thankfully, I was able to find another contract pretty quickly after that. And it was a great school. The boss was super nice. He was a green flag, okay? Respected me as a human being and let me be a good teacher and have fun and just do the things I wanted to do without being controlled. Now, here comes the juicy part. So how do you know you are legally fired? So I think I kind of hinted at this, but basically there are 3 things you should remember. If you are in a contract within the first 3 months, you can be let go for any reason. So just be aware of that. After 3 months, then you have the legal system kicking in. So if your boss wants to get rid of you, there are 2 ways that they might do it. The legal way, which is give you 3 write-ups, and they have to be legit write-ups with evidence and showing you did go through training to correct this behavior that they thought was a problem. And normally after the 3rd write-up, then that would be your last and final warning. And then after that, they could fire you legally without any repercussions on their part. Other times they'll just assume that you don't know anything about the legal system and just fire you. Which you cannot get fired for any silly reason except for legal things, okay? You cannot just be told after 3 months, we don't want you, do not come back. They cannot do that because this is your legal workplace. They cannot argue with immigration law or argue with labor law, okay?
And honestly, it's another layer when you're a foreigner and you're leaving your home country, you're living there, and now they're telling you you're done here. You have one layer of having immigration to think about. You have your visa is tied to your workplace, and you also lose your job and your housing. Because remember, our workplace did pay for housing. That's how it was.
That's typically what's a part of your contract. They either provide you housing or they have to give you the payment and leeway of housing if you have your own. So yes, you cannot get fired unless it's for a legit reason, okay? And also these write-ups, they also have to be for legit reasons. They cannot just pay.
And they should be writing also.
Yes.
Can't just be verbal.
No, verbal warnings do not count because there's no way I can say that they can prove that they had this talk with you, okay? They try to manipulate you in a lot of ways to not know your rights. And so if you do not know your rights and you need help or you need advice, I recommend either checking out the Reddit one, which we saw, Teaching in Korea. Mm-hmm. Or there's the really good Facebook page called Loft, which is legal. I cannot remember the acronym, but it's LOFT. And it's a place for people to ask questions and get help from other people who might have more experience in this situation. As well as there is a helpline. Basically, it's called MOEL, MOEL as it's shortened for. And they are who you contact if you have any kind of problems that you think is not legal. So basically, if there's wage discrepancies, if there are, for instance, your boss is trying to fire you for a stupid reason, you can report to them. There's a lot of things that you could do. Now, there is the support of the community. Do not forget you can reach out to that, okay? Or in my case, have a Korean boyfriend who can help you fight your battles, which was great. He helped me deal with a lot of that stuff during that transition period because my boss did try to do a lot of legal stuff, like make me vacate my apartment a week before I left. And my boyfriend called them and said, no, you cannot ask her to leave. That's illegal. Thankfully, for my guy.
Yeah.
And I think I will end that right there. So that is how you know the legalities of getting fired in Korea. Let's move on to Arnell.
Yes. So for my tea time, we're going to get into a little bit. Matter of fact, let me get my tea because this is going to be piping hot.
Ooh, so good.
But for me personally, I feel like you have to choose yourself sometimes.
Right.
Because when you're in a situation like mine, you have kind of just minimized yourself.